Good evening, everyone. Very welcome to the Procurement Plug's very first webinar, Climbing the Procurement Ladder Tips and Tricks. Happy to have you with us today, and I'm hoping that we can bring lots of value to you after this webinar. So um, we'll head on to the agenda for today. Today's agenda. Of course, we'll do some welcome and introductions. Then we would go into career growth strategies, and then we'll look at key skills and certifications that you need to support your career growth. Um, then we would get into sort of recruitment strategies, looking at CV and interview tips and how that can help you with your growth. Then you have the opportunity at the end with some live Q&A with the experts you see on the screen this evening. So the objectives today is, of course, to equip you with tools to accelerate your procurement career, to hear real insight from industry experts that you see on the panel today. Of course, highlight essential skills and certifications that would support you and provide access to exclusive career resources after the webinar. A little bit about me today. So I am your host, and my name is Annalicia Noel. I am the founder and the CEO of the Procurement Plug. 12 plus years in the procurement industry. I have been in both public and private sector. I've led transformation type projects across different energy, healthcare, construction industries, and my passion really is about helping procurement careers thrive and grow. So I have been a career coach unofficially. I've also been a mentor also. And I'm on a mission to empower procurement professionals to sort of champion their growth, ensure they have visibility in the industry, and to lead in the profession. That's a little bit about me. So meet your speakers today on the panel. So we have Susanna Gooch. Little wave, Susanna.
Yeah. Hi.
Susanna is a procurement leader. Susanna has got 25 plus years experience in Fortune 500 and mid-market procurement opportunities. She's a procurement strategist and she is a consultant at Trail. Susanna will take you through procurement career growth strategies today and give you a little bit of insight of how she climbed the career ladder. You can
Thanks,
connect with
Annalicia.
Susan. Sure, you can connect with Susan as well via the QR code you see on the screen. Also, we have Hayley Packham. Hayley is a group director at Heads Resourcing Group. She is an expert with CV and interview, and also an expert with the recruitment market for procurement. So again, you can connect with Hayley on LinkedIn via the QR code. We have Scott. Scott is a recruitment expert, again, with 22 plus years experience in the development field, in the recruitment procurement field. And he is going to be on our live Q&A panel today to give you some good tips around the recruitment industry. He is currently an associate director with Mawson Group and he's building up the function there for procurement. And of course, today I will take you through key skills and certifications for procurement and leadership in the field. So without further ado, let's take you to I'll tell you a little bit about the procurement plug before we head on to Susanna, who will take you through career growth strategies. So the procurement plug is a knowledge-driven ecosystem. So we have a few hubs in there, and everything that we do is around your growth. So we have the academy, where you have on-demand courses and master classes, and we have support in there for branding and personal development as well. We have a job board which sits within the personal development hub. You have lots of stuff in there, CV reviews. You have your personal career page where you can plan your career with some really guided notes, etc. And we have a live salary tracker in there also. You have coaches and mentors directory in there to help you with your career growth. We have the Business Hub as well. The Business Hub has got access to consultants for the business needs for solutions. We have consultants in every area that supports procurement, that is change management, project, legal, etc. And then the Person Development Hub is your biggest hub where you will find this is essentially your central hub for your growth. We are developing some proprietary tools also like Achieve Meter and Procurement Talent Exchange, which will help you grow your career much more quicker. And of course, we have community support as well, where you can have a safe space to speak with people in the procurement profession. The Procurement Plug's vision is to be the number one ecosystem for procurement career growth. That is our North Star. That is what we're about at the Procurement Plug, helping you to understand what you need for your career, where you need to get it, and how you can do it. And our mission is to empower procurement professionals through learning and development, through career growth support, and providing the tools and resources and the community for you to do that. So I will hand over to Susanna. Susanna will cover the topics today for you for key milestones for advancing in procurement career, overcoming career roadblocks, and personal career journey insights. So over to you, Susanna.
Great, thanks Annalicia, and good afternoon, good evening everybody. As Annalicia shared, I've had about over 20-year career within procurement. I've had the opportunity to work operational procurement, category management, lead teams globally. Most recently, I was working with a Fortune 500 company, top tier pharmaceutical company, organization of over 160 people, and I was managing about $5 billion of spend for the organization annually. So really pleased to join this group today, and I just wanted to share with you some insights as I look back on my career and share with you maybe some tips and tricks as you think about your own career within procurement. So I guess first of all, where I'm starting here is, this is kind of the theory of the procurement career path. And I see in the chat about someone who's pivoted into procurement. Absolutely. I came into procurement after a career in the finance industry as well. So I'll share with you some examples on that. But, you know, procurement is recognised as a profession, it's in your own right, but it's still more often that people do transition into procurement rather than set out wanting to, you know, develop into procurement as a career. There's different stages that you can come into procurement. There's the entry level, which is typically looking at like an analyst or a buyer position. Mid-level, where people would come into the procurement profession as maybe a category manager, senior buyer, or maybe even from another function such as supply chain. And then you do see people move into procurement at more senior level. Now, I see that less happening now within the profession. It's more people at the senior level come in who have actually worked up the career ladder within procurement. But I think within organisations, especially larger ones, they do look at what functional expertise that you can bring in. So as I mentioned, I moved into procurement at a mid-level as a category manager. It did mean that I had to get up to the speed very quickly with the company, but also with procurement skills, procurement tools, in addition to the day job. I think as you have a look at your career journey, also consider if you only progress within procurement, then your options in the future do become limited. And I know a number of procurement professionals that have moved in and out of procurement and gained experience within other areas. For example, engineering, finance, which was my original background, quality, commercial, supply chain, marketing, and research. So as you consider what your procurement progress looks like, said, do think about the value that you can bring in from additional, functions that you could flow into the procurement career ladder and then out of it. So this is kind of the theory. I think another question that I've heard when I've been speaking with people about their own career journey is the ability to move across from direct into indirect. And by that, I mean working maybe within the manufacturing industry and then flipping into working within a commercial organization. Again, I'd highly recommend flipping between the two. I've done it myself. And make sure that you avoid becoming pigeonholed and stuck in a particular area of procurement. So this is a great theory, and you can have a look at within an organisation, hey, what are the stepping stones and what's the next role and what does that job title look like? But let's be honest, a career journey really looks a little bit more like this. Kind of bumpy, and the road is not straight. And my own journey, I'd say, is that bottom right hand drawing where you start and you circle back. I've done that. I started in one profession, I circled back and then moved into procurement. And I made the investment in terms of training, education in order to have that change of direction. I think also, if I look at my own career journey, the reality is that life's quite messy. And you kind of sometimes circle around a bit. So I'd say then top right hand side, where you've got the kind of arrow and this ball of string all messed up, that as well as part of my journey. I think you need to reflect about personal time of life as well. Life gets in the way, they're life-changing events. That means that sometimes your career journey does get put on hold for a bit. And I said, recognizing that it's a reality of life, and kind of when I hear people talk very pragmatically about how they set out which roles they will be doing in which time frame, I think, well, it's not always that straightforward and it is a little bit bumpy. But when you do think about your career, think about whether your career you're interested in progressing purely upwards, but also career and development is breadth as well. Yes, we talked about going in and getting experiences in different functions. Frequently, as part of your development in your career, it's sideways. It doesn't always have to be upwards. Okay. So I have had a great career journey within procurement over the last 20 years. Some of the opportunities that arose were planned, some were unplanned, but there are some really consistent themes and approaches which I've had, which have helped ensure that the right doors were open and I was made aware of them at the time. I've always been through a competitive candidate selection process, but I think my approach has really helped to make opportunities become available. So given that, here are some thoughts and some reflections. I say treat every day as a school day. What do I mean by that? I mean, learn about the suppliers, learn about the business function that you're working with, learn about what other industries do and how they're approaching this particular category. Research and look at trade publications. So take that opportunity to really continually develop yourself. Think about real life events and how it impacts procurement. Think about the tariffs at the moment that are and the geopolitical environment. What does it mean for what are you doing? Business outcomes. I always think about how procurement can help my internal stakeholder. How does it help drive value for the business? And what's the benefit for the internal stakeholder? So again, think about what you do with procurement, but think about the value in your stakeholders' terms. Data for me has always been my friend. By that, I mean, it enables us to make fact-based decisions. understand pricing models for different products or services. So think about your data first and use data to validate assumptions, uncover opportunities, and make recommendations, and have those maybe challenging conversations with your stakeholders. I do think data helps drive discussions forward and gives you good credibility. I'd say when you look at your career journey, make sure you kind of choose the right boss in the company. So if you're in a company that's forward thinking, you've got a strategic thinking manager, you've got teams that really enable each other to be successful, that's great. If you're in an organization that's more transactional, reactive, then that is going to impact the development opportunities that you have available. Okay. So when you think about your career journey, also think about the environment that you're in and is it setting you up for success? I think my last two kind of ahas or reflections are that balance of variety versus specialization. Yeah. As I mentioned, I've flipped between directs and indirects. So I've got a broader base of experiences. So it's wise not to remain too long, maybe in a particular sector or in a particular area of procurement, to make sure that you future-proof yourself and you have become adaptable through a range of experiences and learnings. And the last consideration really is network. Yeah. Think about your own network, join networking groups in an area of interest to you, learn how other people and other things operate, not just within your own environment and sector. Okay. So yeah, so as I said, you've got the theory of a career development, but then also the reality. So just some final, I think, top tips really to, make sure that you stay in the driving seat because you are the person most vested, most interested in your career journey. Yeah. So understanding that it's not always that straightforward, a clear road ahead, but do think about what that career roadmap looks like. Think a couple of roles ahead. Okay, this role might look great, but where is it going to get you to? Mentors can be really helpful here if you're strategic. I think we're going to pick up on mentors later on in the Q&A panel session. But yeah, as you think about your career roadmap, think a couple of roles ahead and think about the people that can help you get there. Education and professional development, I said every day is a school day, but that accreditation should be it is high on the list of what employers look for. Your industry certifications, your SIPS membership or equivalent. So make sure that you understand the industry in which you're working. We've talked about in considering your employer, do they have a good track record of developing CPOs, chief procurement officers? Are they helping set you up for your success? And then just to close out, really think about that relationship management skills. We've said about networking, but really the best leaders are those who can kind of adapt their relationship management skills to different stakeholders, to different situations. And it really comes into your personal brand. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there, there's a lot of data feeds, there's a lot of information coming in, but think about what your personal brand is. What thought leadership can you develop? How will you build your network around that? So hopefully it's given you a few things to consider. With that, I think I'm going to pass over to Annalicia unless there's any questions.
Things all right. I've answered a couple of questions in the chat. Thank you so much, Susanna. That was really, really helpful. And I think you've touched on a few things that I may dive into, which is really, really helpful to get you to cover that earlier on. Amazing. So I will cover key skills and certification for procurement leadership. Must have skills for leadership, certifications that enhance your career. We'll dig into that a little deeper. Susanna just covered that. And how to future-proof your career in a little bit more detail. Um, so the first thing we're going to talk about is strategic thinking. It's very, very important. So the ability to align procurement goals with the business strategy, it helps you to become that leader in procurement you want to be and not just that very tactical person. True procurement leadership means understanding the broader business objectives, whether that's growth, where the business wants to go, what's the future of the business, its sustainability goals, how the business wants to innovate, and aligning any sort of procurement and sourcing strategies to support the business. When procurement is seen as a strategic partner, not just a support function, which we tend to get for the seasoned procurement professionals who know this, that's when the real value is created in procurement. So the next thing is to think long term, not just operationally, as Susanna just mentioned. It's very important. It for me, it's like when you under motorway, you're looking 5, 6 cars ahead of you, not just the car right in front of you. So what is that, that long term plan that's in front of you, and how would you sort of plan ahead? It's easy to get caught up in the sort of day-to-day sort of urgent requests, spot buys, and that tactical firefighting. But true leaderships requires stepping back to see the long game. What's in front of you? Are we enabling? Are we innovating? Are we building sustainable supplier relationships? And that's a shift from reactive procurement to proactive procurement. Of course, the use of category management to drive um, innovation and savings in the function is very important. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, when I've worked in so many different organizations, and processes are very much the same. We have lots of businesses that you won't believe are turning over millions of pounds, and they still are very tactical in the way they buy. So category management sometimes does not exist. It's a very strategic tool. When done, when used strategically, in fact, it's a powerful tool. It's not just about grouping spend or looking at using that for sort of like a bit of a data pool. It's about understanding the market, leveraging supply capabilities, and driving both cost and innovation over time. And again, this is where procurement moves from execution to ownership. And if you want to become a leader in procurement, understanding category management and category strategies is very important for your growth. So stakeholder management and influence, very important. Building trust with your key stakeholders, finance, operation, and executive teams. I mean, procurement sometimes can operate in silo and sometimes can be seen as a gatekeeper. But to lead effectively in procurement, we certainly need to build trusted relationships with the other departments that would, I would say, have your back when, when things go tough, and, people to help you to drive the project forward. And that means understanding their goals. What are their interests in the procurement? What are their interests in the project? That speaking the language essentially, and showing how procurement enables them rather than hinder them, rather than being a gatekeeper. It's very important to build those trust relationships. Being seen as a business partner as well is very important. Like I mentioned, not just this gatekeeping. It's just too often procurement is viewed as the department gatekeeper. So we have to ensure that procurement is more of a business partner supporting function, and building those communication and cross-functional impact. Um, Yeah, change management and agility. So leading through uncertainty and being adaptable in procurement is very important. Procurement is, in most business, the engine, the driving force. So uncertainty, if it's one thing, it's definitely constant, whether it's global disruptions, regulatory shifts, or supply chain volatility. Strong leaders don't just react, they adapt, guide others through the change, and it's about staying calm, clear, and decisive even when the ground is shifting. So it's very important to be resilient and not just work through the change as it happened, but be proactive about that change. Adopting agile procurement methodologies is very important as well. Moving away from sort of rigid, linear processes sometimes help. Processes is good. I mean, I am quite process driven. I like to understand where things supposed to be and when. But it's about faster decision making when things happen, the contingencies that are in place. Sometimes your cycles for the procurement can become shorter. Sometimes cross-functional collaboration isn't there, and you have to make decisions that support the business in its original, in its goals. So having an agile procurement mentality and adoption to uncertainty is very important. Encouraging innovation with supply ecosystem as well. That helps with ensuring, changes is managed as well. So we can't afford to be overly transactional with suppliers anymore. It innovation tends to lie with them most of the time as they supply what we need. So we have to look at their technology, their ideas, their capabilities, and build those relationship with suppliers that are innovative. Again, to be a good leader, digital and analytical fluency is just very, very important. So be very comfortable with automation, AI agents, and e-procurement tools. You don't have to know it all. It's not essential that you know it all. But in today's procurement professionals, more than just sourcing skills we need. If you want to move up the ladder, if you want to climb up the ladder, we need to be digitally fluent. And that doesn't mean coding, of course, but it means being comfortable using any sort of e-procurement tools, agentic AI, any sort of bots that could help automate processes and support any sort of procurement transformation. Um, of course, making data-driven decisions as well. I think Susanna touched on data, very important. Procurement is not about gut instincts. It's about what the data is telling us. If the data is not there, it's not happened. So we have to provide that data before cost analysis, ESG metrics, risk modeling, whatever it is. As a leader in procurement, you need to make sure you have clean, clear, and concise data. Again, to be a good leader, emotional intelligence is very, very important. And I will urge you to sort of look into emotional intelligence. There is a lot of psychological and scientific backed data around emotional intelligence and how it enables you to be a good leader. It starts with yourself. So, emotional intelligence starts with knowing who you are, understanding your triggers, managing your emotions, and showing up with intention. Empathy and resilience as a leader is very important, and you've got the foundation of a trusted good leader once you understand and you're self-aware of how empathetic you are. So understanding what level of empathy you have will help you to manage teams and to help motivate your teams as well. It's very crucial, very, very crucial. Um, so we would look, so that's about leadership and understanding how to become a leader in procurement, looking forward, understanding you're not just looking at where you are now and the next step in front of you, but the next 5, 6 steps in front of you and what you're going to do in order to get there, and understanding the steps you need to take in order to get there. So we are going to look at certifications that enhance your career growth. Of course, we know MSIPs. That's the sort of gold standard in the industry, or FSIPs if you want to go a little bit further. But I like to say that SIPs is not just the only thing, it's just one of the many things that make you a great procurement professional and a strategic leader. Finance for procurement, it's very important. So you can't lead what you don't understand. We spend a big bucks in procurement. We know um, the supply chain, we know how much things cost most of the time, but do we understand cost modeling? Do we understand total cost of ownership? And do we understand the money that we're spending, how it affects a business on a whole? So finance for procurement is very important. And if it's something that you think you need to develop your skill set in or your knowledge in, I would certainly advise to get into it. It's not about savings, but it's about commercial value. Another certification I would definitely advise is project and or program management. So change is constant, and transformation is definitely expected. So certifications in project management like Prince 2 or PMP helps you to deliver more structured change within the procurement function. MSP goes a little step further, so that's preparing you to more oversee a portfolio of projects, not just one initiative. So at mid-career point, these aren't just nice to haves, but they are tools to help you move from manager to leader and from tactical to strategic. Um, as well, I think to help you to build resilience and be responsible leader, you can upskill yourself in risk management and understanding um, how to be more risk aware in procurement. So procurement professionals, I think, must be risk aware, and to be a leader, you have to move away from again being tactical, and that is helping you to understand contract exposure from supply chain disruptions to geopolitical shocks, etc. So we need a structured sort of framework which includes risk. I think if you're a sourcing manager and a procurement manager, you tend to, hopefully, I think, would do your commercial risk and all of that before you go out to market. But having a more risk aware or a risk management skill set or knowledge base can help you to assess and monitor and mitigate these risks more skillfully. Of course, ESG and sustainable procurement is not just a buzzword anymore. So, and it's no more just a nice to have, it's a leadership imperative. So, if you are looking to grow into and climb up the career ladder, ESG training helps you to embed ethical practices, drive carbon reduction goals in collaboration with procurement, and deliver real social value. One of my absolute favorite because I believe procurement has a huge impact on what social value can bring in the whole world. I believe procurement has a good seat at the table for that. One of my favorite, Lean Six Sigma, green belt, black belt, yellow belt. On the procurement blog, we will have a lot of these trainings, by the way, and we will have a free yellow belt training available once our platform launch. Process excellence isn't just for operations, it is absolutely for procurement too. So Lean Six Sigma gives you the tools to identify waste, streamline your supplier processes, and consistently deliver value within your organization. So if you've not heard of Lean Six Sigma before, if you've not um, had an opportunity to do a course in it, start with your yellow belt. Yellow belt, usually you get a free taster course in that, and then you can grow into the green and then the black belt. But responsible leaders are resilient people. So this helps you to manage risk, it helps you to lead ethically, it helps you to be more efficient and drive change more lean as well. And this is my favorite part. I love to call these growth investments. So these are the things that I would invest in. It's myself as also investing to help me with my thought leadership to become have a more strategic edge and become more strategic in my profession, sorry. So leadership and development courses. Again, we're talking about becoming leaders, not just better procurement practitioners. How are you going to climb that career ladder? So at mid-career stage, leadership is less about doing and more and about enabling others to do well as well. So courses that would help you grow in your leadership. So there's lots of courses in terms of executive courses, but there's like from the ILM, CMI, and all those executive short programs as well. So of course, everything there's a cost attached to it. So just assess which one works for your budget, which one works for where you are at your career stage. And I think these are good growth investments to have. It helps you to refine your skills and to shape your knowledge and your thinking. And of course, to become a leader, you have to lead teams. So it helps you to lead more strategically and successfully. Another growth investment, I would say, is coaching and mentorship. Think of coaching and mentor as your career accelerator to help you gain clarity, build confidence, and avoid costly detours. I'll quickly run through this, and this is just about digital literacy, very important. I mean, we understand the trajectory of procurement. Lately, procurement is becoming increasingly digitized. So, from automated sourcing to integrated supply platforms to intake software, etc. So, stay digitally savvy, stay ahead with any sort of bots, blockchain, AI, digital supply chain trends. And if you can upskill yourself in any sort of digital strategy courses as well, do invest in that. That's a good growth investment. So top tips is just to stay relevant as well, is to, of course, as Susanna mentioned, build your personal brand. Visibility is credibility. So people need to know how good you are, what you do. And that needs to be shared. Stay curious about tech and trends as well. Don't wait for it to disrupt you and hit you in the face. Be ready, be prepared so you stay in ahead. Network, lead, and value yourself as someone who has, don't let that imposter syndrome hit you. If you grow and you sort of network and you have the ability to be where you are, let your value show and let the data that you provide about yourself be shown as well. So network intentionally, let your values be shown and be data driven. Remember, relationship open doors, values build trust, and data drives everything. So, without further ado, I hope that was really helpful to you, and I will hand over to Haley, who would give you some tips and tricks about the recruitment industry for procurement.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. You've got a recruiter now for the next 15 minutes, so you're lucky souls. I appreciate not all of you are job hunting at the moment, but hopefully some of these tips will be known to you. Others you might get some learnings from this evening. So we're going to look at what recruiters specifically look for when we're interacting with you guys, how to optimize your CV. I've put a bit of personal branding in there because I do think LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll all agree, is a bit of a minefield, and how you go about branding yourself, I think, is equally as important as a CV. So I just want to touch upon that. Look at some interview tips to stand out in a competitive market, some common questions that you will get asked time and time again by hiring managers that come up. And then lastly, any myth busters for job hunting. So let's debunk some of those. Thank you. So what do we look for? And I'll draw Scott into this as well as a fellow recruiter, but these were the kind of the key things that we look for when we interact with candidates. And I think whilst there's a list there, I think the most important thing to note is how you interact with a recruiter. Now, I get it, it's quite ironic. Recruiters have a very bad reputation at times for lack of response to candidates. And I know the industry doesn't have the best reputation, but if you partner with a recruiter that has genuine partnerships with their clients, we want to help you secure roles. So to do that, we need to partner and work together. So how you should view your interaction with a recruiter, be it over the phone, in an in-person meeting, on a webinar, in the same fashion that you would as if you were interviewing with a client. So we are the precursor to getting you in front of an employer. So how you show up to us gives us the confidence to be able to put you in front of our clients who have entrusted us to find them the next person. So really do think about those interactions. Quite often I will provide some feedback. So my last bullet point is willingness to take feedback. And quite often I'll meet with a candidate and I will give them some candid feedback at the end of our interaction. And the common response that I will hear is, well, obviously I wouldn't do that at an interview. It's not obvious to the recruiter that you wouldn't behave that way in an interview, or you wouldn't have your screen set up in a certain setting with a questionable background, for example. So it's our job in a safe space, in a safe environment, to help you be as prepared as you can before we put you in front of our clients. So it's just something to bear in mind about how those interactions should go. Another one is be really clear on your motivations. What are you looking for your next role? What is the career trajectory you want to take? Again, a common theme when I speak to candidates about why they're looking, it will always be a financial implication or a salaried implication. For me, finance and money is a byproduct of the real reason. And if you're working with a trusted recruiter and you come to me and you say, it's money, it's a pay rise, I don't feel as valued, or I don't feel like I'm achieving market rate, my first response would be, before you come to market and before we start working together, you should absolutely have that conversation with your employer, because you might find that you will mitigate that by having that conversation. If you enjoy your job, you enjoy the people you work with, and there's no reason to look elsewhere other than purely a financial motivation, have that conversation first, because you might just be surprised. When you do come to market, be really clear about the reasons outside of money that are really driving that, because that's what we like to tap into. Also, we talk about salary a lot, but think about your remuneration package expectations as a total comp, because different parts of a package will be important to different people. For some people, it's pension. For some people, it's holiday allowance. For others, it could be the flexible working that's on offer. So think about everything that is important to you in that remuneration and how it's constructed, and make sure that that is communicated with the recruiter. Obviously, we want to see a clear and concise CV. Obviously, we want an updated LinkedIn profile, and we can certainly help you with those. And then think about your elevator pitch. This is really like a 30-second why me intro. What sets you apart from another head of category, for example? Why would someone offer you a job over somebody else? And it's not just to justify that to a recruiter, it's something you will hear time and time again in an interview, because essentially it is a sales pitch. So those would be the things that I would say. Scott, have I missed anything based on your experiences?
No, I think you're bang on there. I'd say an add on to that is that making sure that your CV and your LinkedIn profile both match. For often I've seen different matches, especially dates, especially when you get to that stage where hopefully you get a nice role, you're going through the onboarding stage, and then your dates are mismatching with your LinkedIn and your CV profile. So make sure that is completely correct. And I think the last point I really like around willingness to take feedback. Often everyone thinks that they can do every single job, and I've had that before. Of course I can do that job, and sometimes things don't work out in an interview for whatever reason. And giving feedback is often the hard thing to do, is giving feedback to a candidate that hasn't got that job for whatever reason, because everyone thinks they can do that job. And sometimes it gets blinded that the fact that maybe some of the technical skills weren't quite as good as the other candidate. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad candidate and you're never going to get a job. It just means that maybe you need to either shine a light on that better in an interview, or go away and take on some other skills to be better prepared for the next one. So it doesn't mean that, you're never going to get a job and take it so personally. It just means that the other candidate might have been slightly better on that than yourself.
Brilliant, thank you. And then moving on, Susanna, would you be able to? Thank you. Perfect. So when we look at optimizing your CV, I won't go through all the points. And just to caveat, this slide deck of mine is particularly wordy because it was meant as a bit of a guide to be able to share afterwards. So if anybody does want it to use as a reference, absolutely, we can share our guides and templates. So just to bear that in mind. But writing for your audience, clearly, conciseness is key. So you will be told, recruiters, line managers spend approximately 2 minutes skimming a CV. That's not a fallacy, but it certainly helps if you use short, clear sentences rather than large block text, different type fonts, different size fonts, etc. So just think about how it looks to the reader, because they don't have a lot of time to be able to skim through and find the detail that's necessary to be able to understand if you're a quick match. Avoid generic phrases or vague terms, team player, excellent communicator. It's saying words without really saying anything. I mean, most people would say they can communicate well and be a team player. You're not really going to put anything else. So think about concrete examples and achievements rather than just generic buzzwords that you might see on a CV. And then moving on. Sorry, Susanna, I need you to change the slide. Thank you. Click, please. Thank you. Look at your recent experience. Last 5 years, typically, we would advise. And the reason for that is your most recent experience is what people are going to be looking for. So if you were an IT category manager 15 years ago, for example, and you haven't bought IT services, hardware, software, SaaS for the last 15 years, and it's not relevant to the role you're applying for, you don't need to put endless reams of detail. Technology advances daily, weekly, monthly, and talking about something you did 15 years ago, particularly if it's not relevant to the role you're applying for, isn't going to help you. So really double down on the last 5 years and then skim through everything else before and just keep it brief. Hobbies and interests is a bit of a bone of contention. Do I put hobbies? Do I not? Does it showcase the personality that I am? Personally, I think hobbies take up a valuable space on a CV. I think what it would be more important to highlight is how you're keeping up with your CPD, your professional development. You know, what podcasts are you listening to? What procurement trends are you noticing in the market? How are you just keeping your tools, your toolkit sharp, your training sharp? That would be more valuable to an employer than what you like to do at the weekend, personally speaking. Next slide, please. Thank you. I sound like Chris Whitty. It's like COVID times. Next slide, please. And then your personal brand. So LinkedIn is a really important tool and a valuable one if you get it right in terms of your job search. So whilst we would love to place every candidate that interacts with us, that's not viable. And we found a lot of our network have secured their own roles through the power of LinkedIn. And there's 3 things that I would urge you to focus on and look at your profile after the meeting today and see if there are areas that you could improve it. But use LinkedIn as a force for good. So share valuable content. Look at insights, articles, posts, updates that make you that thought leader in your field. You know, if you're a candidate entering the market and want to secure a new head of procurement role, or you're a current head of procurement and you're wanting to attract talent into your team, how you show up on social media, and particularly a professional platform like LinkedIn, will really carry that weight. So think about the content that you put out there and the audience that you want to receive that. Annalicia's touched on this, but engaging with a network is really important. You know, attending networking events, actively participating in discussions and groups on LinkedIn. You know, you can get a lot out of those connections, and you never know who you're connected to is also connected to. So think about making your network as broad and as diverse as possible. Having recruited finance before I recruited into procurement, the procurement community are actually good fun. And they love a bit of a networking. You try and get a load of finance directors in a room and it's slightly different. So I would urge you guys to build those networks as large as you can, because it will lead to opportunities, certainly. And then lastly, look at getting endorsements and recommendations. So there is a section on LinkedIn where people can basically provide testimonials and give more credence to your background and experience by backing that up. So encourage colleagues, clients, employers to look at your skills and write recommendations on your behalf, so that when we put you in front of a client and they want to interview, invariably somebody will also, alongside your CV, look at your LinkedIn profile and check that you've got some credibility behind what you're saying. So they would be the 3 things to focus on LinkedIn if you're not already doing so. Next slide, please. And planning. It can be a full-time job to put content out constantly on LinkedIn. Believe you me, we have to do it here. 3 times a week is kind of my max before I can't do anymore. But have a goal in mind. Start small. 1-2 days a week should be fine to start with, because it can be quite daunting. But think about actually, how do I pipeline the content? What do I want people to see? How does this help me secure a role? Or how does it ultimately help me attract talent into my team? And then the tips around that would be, next slide, please. Thank you. Put some content placeholders over a 2-week period. We've definitely got templates that we can share that will help you. Map out your content and what is the call to action. So what do you want your audience to take away from what you're saying? And then look at the analytics and find out what works. So LinkedIn, even with the free LinkedIn tool that you've got, you do, even on that, get some rudimentary analytics that tells you what your impressions are, what your engagement levels are, and actually what each of your posts are doing. And over a period of 1 to 3 months, you build up a bank of content and actually understand what is working for your audience and what's getting the most traction. And then you can just rinse, repeat, and it becomes a lot easier an exercise. So try those things if you aren't already doing so. And then looking forward to interview tips and preparation. Research is absolutely key for obvious reasons. Thoroughly look into the company's website, what their values are. Think about how your core values align with the company's objectives. Also, don't be afraid to challenge. You know, if a company is openly talking about how brilliant their ED&I initiatives or policies are, even when I talk to a client, the first thing I do is go and look at their board. And if their board isn't very diverse, one of my questions is, well, what are you doing with those initiatives to create diversity in your senior leadership team? So think about strategically what you can be asking of companies, and don't be afraid to challenge, because an interview is a two-way street, particularly at a senior level. If you're invited into an SMT, you know, you want to know that actually your opinions and your voice is heard. So look at, when you do your research, outside of the job description, actually, what is this company about? What do they stand for? What are their values? And therefore, what questions can I basically compile for them as we go through the process? Next slide, please. Thank you. Stakeholders. So a good recruiter will know the company and the hiring managers really well by this point. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting you in front of them. So really familiarise yourself with who you are meeting, what involvement they have in the process, do they have ultimate decision making over who gets hired, and what are they like as people. So being really well informed about who you're meeting and the different character types that might be involved in that process is important. Don't forget to engage with all members of the interview process. It can be quite painful sometimes when we get feedback, whether it's on Teams or in person, and it's a HR representative and someone from procurement, and the candidate is conversing with clearly the hiring manager in procurement, and HR is being ignored in the corner. You can be pretty sure they're going to come in with some behavioural type questions and cultural type questions throughout. So it's really important to remember that everyone you engage with and interact with will leave a marked impression. If you're going to a face-to-face interview, you'll be really surprised how much weight the receptionist has on your ability to get the job. So how you treat the very first person when you sign in is just as important as meeting the CEO. Job description alignment. Yes, obviously review the job description, align your experience. Strengths and weaknesses. This is a funny one because people are very good to be very able to articulate their strengths. Nobody wants to highlight a weakness because they assume the minute they do, they're not going to get the job because the person will use that as a vehicle to discount them. You've got to be a bit clever, I think, with your weaknesses. You've got to frame them in a positive light. Two common ones, I think, that most people get away with and can articulate best is probably around delegation. So if you have a difficulty with delegating, there's no harm in saying, look, I am a very hands-on person and sometimes I find it difficult to delegate tasks. However, I am actively working on this. The same with overly detail-oriented. So obviously attention to detail is valuable, but sometimes it can mean that you're missing out on the bigger picture. So there's no harm in saying, look, I am a bit of a perfectionist and I do like to control and get focused in the detail, but I am working on improving my time management and prioritization skills. So think of a weakness, frame it, turn it into a positive, but certainly don't shy away from it. Thank you. Interviewing is a two-way street. I think I've said that before. They're on display as much as you, and I think it's your opportunity to get a real insight into the organisation and its objectives. So we ask people to think about questions before they have an interview, and quite often it's very much rudimentary questions. You know, what's the flexible working pattern, or what are the hours? You know, we've got to get out of that and ask more strategic questions. So look at what you can do in this regard, and I've put some questions down there. What will success look like? Who will be my biggest supporters and detractors? You know, in procurement, you're working with stakeholders all the time. Structure your responses. So this is a key one. You've probably heard of the STAR technique, which is situation, task, action, result. When you answer a competency-based question, so tell me a time when questions, we like to use the SOAR technique here, which is only very slightly different. But instead of task, it's an obstacle. The reason we do that is because we think it's crucial for showcasing problem-solving skills and resilience. So the SOAR technique will encourage more comprehensive responses and allow candidates to demonstrate how they've overcome setbacks, which I think is a valuable aspect for many roles that you guys will be going for. Thank you. more questions there for you guys to look at. We can skip that, that's fine. Fabulous. Salary expectations. This is always a bone of contention at interview. Do I discuss salary? What if they ask me? What do I say? People panic, and then they say a salary that is demonstrably lower than they would be willing to accept. Don't undersell yourself. Understand what the market rate is for the role that you are going for, and understand what you are comfortable with accepting, because we see it too often, and I'm sure Scott will concur. People say a number that they think the client would want to hear, and then lo and behold, they get offered that number and are surprised by it. And then our job is to have to try and negotiate it up. But we're starting from a harder place because you've already explicitly stated that that is the salary that you are comfortable with. And it's purely an on-the-spot fear type response. But there's no harm in knowing your worth and your value and saying, I understand the market rate for this role is X, and that is my expectation. That is totally fine as a response. Next slide, please. Common interview questions. We've covered most of them, but just a flavour there which you can take away. You're always going to be asked around stakeholder management, how you influence, competency-based questions, culture fit and behaviours. I put a hint at the bottom. If a recruiter says, oh, don't worry, it's only a half-hour Teams call, they're just getting to know you, it's really informal, it's never an informal chat, I promise you. Whilst we might not have a lot of detail and the client will frame it that way, a 30-minute interaction, whilst it might not feel formal in style, it is still very much you on display. So just bear that in mind. It's not a chat. It's never an informal chat. And then lastly, mythbusters. So these are some common ones, and I'm sure I've missed some and Scott will concur, but you don't need to meet 100% of the role requirements, because if you did, quite frankly, you'd probably be bored in the job that you were applying for, and you can do it. The CV one, I don't know about you, Scott, but this one drives me balmy. Should it be 2 pages? Should it be 3? Should it be 10? Quite frankly, I don't care how long it is. It just needs to be relevant. If it's 2, if it's 3, that's fine. If your CV is 15 pages, I would question why you've got that level of detail in there, given we've said focus on the last 5 to 10 years, but it doesn't have to be one or the other. I won't cover all of these, but job hopping or gaps in employment, that's a crucial one. And I think particularly as we've got different generations going for roles, there's a different perception on, oh, this person's only stayed in a job for 2 years and then they've moved on. Gen Z typically will stay in a role every 2-3 years and move on. That is quite commonplace now. And therefore, if you've got a hiring manager of a different generation, a millennial, for example, that might look at that in a negative light, we've got to work as recruiters to help reframe that with some of our clients, because it's not considered job hopping anymore. 2-3 years is perfectly acceptable, providing you've shown tangible growth. If you've moved role every 2 years and you're doing exactly the same job just in a different company and it hasn't afforded you any more achievements, yes, you could argue that that might be considered job hopping. The same with gaps in employment. We're all human, right? Gaps in employment are perfectly acceptable. You just have to explain why you've got them, but you certainly don't have to shy away from them. And my last point's around AI and automation. We can't escape it at the moment. Everyone is saying that this will eliminate all of our roles, whether we're recruiters, procurement professionals. It's simply not true. AI and automation is there to be an enabler to help procurement act more strategically. Of course, it will take away some of the administrative burden and some of the more tactical tasks, but it should be seen as an enabler. My advice to you would be to gen up on the AI and automation tools as a procurement professional, because more and more in interviews now, you're going to be asked about your technological capability and skill set. And because it's ever evolving, that would be an area of development I would start to look at now. And that's me. Thank you for listening.
Amazing. Thank you, Hayley. And if you need any info from Hayley, you can, of course, contact her via her contact. So thank you, everyone who has joined. Now, we have an open tail for Q&A. So drop your Q&A. We've got some in the chat, which I would love to throw out to the panel. So I have got this question. Now that I'm MSIPS, I don't know what to do next. It's making me feel stagnant. from Susanna, would you like to jump on that question and just give a little bit of a sort of idea of how we can move forward if you're feeling stagnant? I mean, having MSIPs, it always makes you feel like, right, I'm now qualified and I can get the job now. But how can you get out of feeling stagnant?
Yeah, I think when you get MSIPs, I mean, it's such a journey. I think you should feel celebratory, actually.
Yeah.
The MSIPs, it's a really good qualification to have got, and certainly employers are looking for it. I think I'd need to understand what is driving the feeling of stagnation. Maybe with MSIPs, you feel that, looking now for a change of company, a change of industry, maybe a change of category. So I think it's more about understanding that. But I'd say certainly MSIPs is an expectation, or so SIPs requirement from a large number of employers now. So it should really
Yeah.
be a door opener.
Yeah, certainly. And Scott, from a recruitment perspective, do you see that MSIPs are usually required for more senior roles or roles that are sort of mid-senior level? And is it becoming something that is more required, or is it something that are sort of like a bit relaxed on when it comes to hiring managers?
I think what we've seen, certainly over the years, I think the public sector are demanding it more than the private sector, and always have done. But we're certainly seeing it more of it in the private sector now. If you've got two candidates kind of equal amongst everything, but one has MSIPs and one doesn't, they're probably more likely to pick the MSIPs person. And going back on the last question, in terms of feeling stagnant, I think that's more of a look at kind of the type of role that you're doing currently and the type of career development you've got within that company. So that really having MSIPs and gone through that, which I know is a long journey, should really be able to elevate you in the role that you're doing currently, or certainly give you opportunities in the current company. And if it's not giving you that, then perhaps it's time to move and have a look elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Susanna. Um, so again, that would help you in terms of understanding how to explore career growth in the UK, looking at your SIPs, your qualifications, and as Haley mentioned, apply for loads of jobs. Um, Thoughts and ideas about moving from one industry to another. For instance, senior manager from automotive going to pharma. Is it feasible? I think it is feasible. One of the very important thing that we're driving at the procurement plug is cross industry procurement knowledge. So associating yourself with the other industry, how they operate, the languages speak, the accreditations that are needed within that industry. If you understand that and able to talk that language on an interview, I think that will help you to sort of cross over into that other field. One of the important tools that we will be rolling out in the procurement plug is called the Procurement Plug Talent Exchange, which will do exactly this. It will help businesses basically second their staff from energy to construction, from automotive to health within a managed portal, which we will have under Procurement Plug. And that helps you to get 3, 6, 9 months of cross industry knowledge, best practices that helps you to continually evolve in your career without feeling that stagnant feeling of, right, I've been in the automotive industry for the last 10 years. How can I move to construction? How can I move to health? So us having that tool in the procurement plug will help businesses to, give their staff that continuous development and knowledge. Again, from a recruitment perspective, Scott and Haley, I would love to understand, is it very difficult when looking at CVs? I always say procurement is 80% of a certain skill set. The 20% is what you need to learn about the specific industry. I mean, how difficult it is crossing from automotive to pharma or health to energy from a recruitment hiring manager perspective.
I'll take that, given Haley spoke quite a lot earlier and probably
Thank
getting her
you.
breath back and having a drink. Look, I think it's certainly a lot easier to cross industries within indirect procurement, because buying hardware is buying hardware, mainly the same sort of suppliers. I think where it gets a bit more trickier is in the direct procurement. So going from buying parts for an aeroplane versus buying minerals and granules for a pharma company is slightly different. However, that said, a lot of it comes down to the application. It comes down to, I guess, from a recruiter's point of view, how well we know the stakeholders and the companies we're working with. And I'll give you a live example. Years and years ago, I placed, and I'll companies nameless, I should say, were buying satellites, and they needed someone to go and buy satellites. Now, there aren't that too many people in the procurement world that have bought satellites before, based in the UK. So then I had to educate the customer to say, look, you understand this is quite niche, but what about someone from that type of background, technology, direct sort of background, and actually I placed that person in and did a really good job. So 100% it can happen. 100% you can change industry. Work with the recruiter if it's directly with a recruiter, and how well they know that stakeholder, and just make sure that you're articulating those skills and what you bring to the table that's maybe slightly different. Hayley, I've probably missed some stuff there.
No, I would have echoed all of that. All good.
You amazing. I would definitely take those tips on board. Another question I think is really important. What are the best tips for someone who just enters the profession? So you've studied, but you've got no experience. Now that is usually quite difficult. I think always my advice to my sort of mentees is be ready to take, if you're crossing industry, be ready to take a pay cut, because you have to start from a point where you need to build your experience. Be ready to travel, be ready to be a little uncomfortable with probably the role, the expectations. Sometimes you just have to compromise in order to get into the industry. Once you break in, it's like getting onto the property ladder. You have to get in there in order for you to climb that ladder. So be prepared to be a little bit uncomfortable in sort of a lower role that you're used to, break into the industry, and then let your experience speak for itself. Again, we talk about the certifications that needed. So if you've just done sort of like a procurement course and MSIPs, do something that would give you a bit more of a strategic edge as well. And of course, we talk about networking. Make sure your network understands your value. Sometimes, of course, experience is there, but procurement, we can use our theory to sort of bring our experience on board as well. It's not maths. It's not rocket science. So it's once you get into the field, upskill yourself continually, grow your network, and you should be able to get into that right role. We got probably time for about 2 or 3 more questions. Let's see what we've got. What does the procurement market look like from a recruitment perspective? What trends are you seeing, and what do we predict to happen in the next year? Oh, I like that question. Off you go, Scott. That's for you or Haley.
Do you want me to take it?
Go for it. Well, we can both help each other.
Dovetail. So what are the trends? There's two interesting trends. One has been wage inflation post-COVID has gone up humongously, which I think has hindered a lot of candidates then wanting to switch roles. I think salary expectations have been beyond what employers are able, not necessarily prepared, but able to pay due to budgetary constraints. There is a huge skills shortage at the moment in the procurement profession. So if you are looking, now is a really, really good time to be doing so, because organisations are crying out for strategic procurement skills. I think we've done an exercise recently with a chap, and we're going to release a report where we interviewed basically 100 businesses. And what we got back was that the procurement training actually for the industry was quite woeful, which is only going to exacerbate the skill shortage that we see because people aren't getting enough training. And SIPs as a body doesn't necessarily lend itself to lots of different types of industries. It can be quite biased and geared towards certain. So look, I think those two things are an issue and an increasing problem at the moment. I think in the broader perspective, contract recruitment, so interim recruitment, is down currently, and permanent positions are up. And I think where the most demand is that we're seeing from a category perspective, definitely IT category roles, for sure. And I think that's no surprise, given a lot of companies are now going through these digital transformations, looking at how to implement tech and tools to certainly enhance. So I think, again, if you're an IT category individual, then you're in a very good marketable position of late. But look, I think we can control what we can control, right? You can look at what Trump's doing with his tariffs. You can look at what the big recruiters put out there and say, well, our profits are down, it's plummeted, and everyone panics and thinks the recruitment market's terrible. It's not. Actually, all that's happening is the smaller boutique organizations and the scale-up firms are offering and partnering with their clients to deliver a really qualitative service. So if you partner with the right individuals, absolutely they will have the right relationships to translate. But I think procurement will always be in demand, and it's still a discipline that's relatively immature in comparison to others. Finance is quite saturated, marketing is quite saturated. Procurement is still, I believe, still on that upward trajectory, and businesses are still will still highly be in demand.
Yeah.
Anything
Totally
on that?
agree.
If I could just add on to that as well, and you touched on it briefly, Annalicia, when we think about procurement's impact on risk, is a real value driver that companies, the organizations are realizing. It's not just obviously about the savings and the value creation, but it's about protecting the business, protecting the supply chain of business. So I think that risk element is really critical value that procurement brings to the organization, and businesses are really recognizing that and seeking that support and expertise.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you,
I
Susanna.
was just going to add on to that, sustainability obviously is another bit of a buzzword, but actually we've seen many heads of procurement or senior procurement people go into a purely sustainability role now, which again is the evolvement of the procurement profession in a good way.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a lot. Sustainability procurement manager, but procurement lead is quite exciting actually. I think one of the things that we say in procurement is procurement touches every part of the business. We are, I would say, the sort of engine, the driving force. So understanding every part of the business, it can help you grow in different areas, ESG, IT, and you can move into different, if you're a marketing, person as well, that you source a lot of marketing. I see that you understand marketing. You can move into that role. You can become very commercially savvy, understanding procurement and growing up the career ladder. I think it's a really good function. One of the things we are very, very precious about at the Procurement Plug is helping you to understand how you can grow. So all these webinars, other sessions going forward is to help the profession grow. The training that is very much hardly there is what we want to provide, even pushing companies to help use our services to upskill their staff. So hopefully, the financial burden doesn't always fall on you, but can sometimes fall on the business to help upskill. So that is something that we're all about at the Procurement Plug. I think we're also quite out of time for the questions now. If you do have any more questions, we're happy to answer. Just drop us a message at the Procurement Plug, support at theprocurementplug.com. If you have any requests for any of the slides as well. In fact, we will share the slides with you post the event as well. But I just wanted to share some closing remarks. Thank you so much for being part of this first webinar from the Procurement Plug. And as part of being part of this webinar, we have a special code for you once we've launched the Procurement Plug platform to get a discount from the Personal Development Hub subscription. So this will be sent out to you via your email. I hope this has been really helpful. There is a lot of value that you will get from the Procurement Plug. So keep an eye on the Procurement Plug page on LinkedIn for its release, and you will be able to, access all the things that we have in there. We've got, if you're anywhere near Manchester or Glasgow, we've got our upcoming seminar, Elevate. Again, is to help you to elevate your career, as we're all about at the Procurement Plug. So keep your eye out on our page, on our website, again, for speakers, release dates in terms of the where we're holding the event, etc. Thank you so much for being part of this event, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you to Scott, thank you to Susanna and Hayley. It has been really, really good. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
thank you.